Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into some really interesting research that you sent over about the differences between men and women.
Yeah.
It's a conversation exploring all sorts of cognitive and behavioral contrasts. Get ready for some aha moments.
Yeah.
Because this is juicy stuff.
What immediately stood out to me was how the source material just jumped right into communication styles.
Right.
They claim men and women literally use their brains differently when speaking.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So the source argues that for men, it's primarily the left brain handling speech. I think logic, directness, a very linear way of communicating.
Okay.
But for women, both hemispheres are firing,
Oh.
leading to a more associative style. They connect ideas, emotions, and context all at once.
So if a man asks for directions, he wants the straight line on the map.
Right.
But if a woman asks, she's also looking for landmarks and maybe a little story about the neighborhood.
That's a great way to put it. And it ties into the classic example the source gives.
Okay.
A woman asking, which shoe looks better?
Yeah.
It might sound like a simple question,
Yeah.
but often she's not seeking a correct answer.
Right.
It's more about connection, shared decision-making, that dance of, we're in this together.
That's so true. And I've noticed that sometimes just acknowledging the need for connection rather than providing like a direct answer can really diffuse a potentially tense situation.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is this difference in brain activity measurable?
Right.
Is there scientific evidence to back this up?
Yeah.
That's something you could dig into further if you're curious.
Definitely adding that to my reading list.
Yeah.
But the source didn't just stop at how we speak, right?
Right.
They also talked about the sheer volume of words.
Yes. They highlighted that men supposedly speak around 7,000 words per day,
Okay.
while women average a whopping 20,000.
Wow, that's almost triple. No wonder sometimes I feel like my partner needs subtitles. But the source goes deeper, suggesting this difference isn't just random chatter. It's tied to how we handle stress.
Precisely.
Okay.
The source suggests that for women, talking is a way to process stress, to release it by sharing.
Yeah.
Men, on the other hand, need silence to do that internal processing. Think of it like a computer needing to defrag its hard drive.
Okay.
It needs to go quiet to sort things out.
So when my partner goes silent after a tough day, it's not that he doesn't care.
Right.
It's that his processing unit needs a break from input. I'm starting to see how these communication differences can lead to misunderstandings if we don't know the code.
Exactly. And the source takes this a step further, linking men's sensitivity to failure back to our evolutionary history.
Okay.
They argue that for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, failure often meant starvation, even death.
Wow.
It was high stakes.
So silence becomes a survival mechanism. It's not about sulking.
Right.
It's about going into strategic problem-solving mode.
That's the idea the source presents.
Okay.
It's fascinating to consider how those ancient instincts might still be influencing our modern behavior.
Yeah.
Of course, not every man goes silent under pressure,
Right.
and not every woman needs to talk it out,
Right.
but it's a compelling starting point for understanding those ingrained patterns.
It definitely makes you think. But let's shift gears a bit. The source also delves into the always complicated realm of love and relationships.
Yes.
And they make some pretty bold claims about how men approach love.
The source suggests that for men, love is often driven by perceived benefits and objective qualities.
Okay.
They use the term compartmentalization,
Okay.
implying that men can separate their feelings for different people, which could contribute to a higher potential for infidelity.
Wait, so the source is saying men only realize a woman's value after they lose her?
It is a strong statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what exactly does compartmentalization look like in real life?
It essentially means that men can have separate boxes in their minds for different relationships,
Yeah.
potentially allowing them to engage in one without it impacting the other emotionally.
Interesting.
Imagine it like having different apps on your phone. You can switch between them without them necessarily interfering with each other.
Okay, so it's not about lacking emotions, but about organizing them differently. Almost like having a mental filing system.
That's one way to interpret it.
Okay.
But it definitely raises questions about how these compartments affect emotional depth and long-term commitment.
Which is interesting because the source then contrasts this with how women approach love.
Right.
They argue that women seek emotional connection and a sense of wholeness in love,
Yes.
making them less likely to jump into relationships casually. It's not just about checking boxes,
Right.
but about finding a partner who aligns with their values, their dreams, their whole being.
Exactly.
Huh?
The source uses an example that might sound a bit stereotypical,
Okay.
but it illustrates their point. Okay.
Men are often drawn to specific physical attributes, while women consider the whole package.
Okay.
Personality, intelligence, emotional maturity,
Yeah.
the works.
It's like men are focusing on individual data points,
Yeah.
while women are looking for the overall pattern,
Right.
the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But of course, there are plenty of men who value emotional connection deeply,
Of course.
and plenty of women who are attracted to physical attributes.
Absolutely.
These are just tendencies the source is highlighting, not absolutes.
Absolutely. And you've brought up a crucial point.
Yeah.
These are broad strokes,
Right.
not individual portraits.
Right.
There's so much variation within each gender that reducing it to these simplistic categories can be misleading.
Totally agree. But even with those caveats, I'm curious to see where the source takes this next, because they seem to be building towards something bigger about these contrasting approaches to love.
Well, get ready for a potentially controversial take on marriage and commitment.
They suggest that men often resist marriage because they see it as a loss of freedom and those benefits we discussed earlier.
Okay.
Women, on the other hand, view it as the culmination of love, a symbol of that deep emotional connection they crave.
So it's like men are approaching marriage with a spreadsheet,
Right.
weighing the pros and cons,
Yeah.
while women are seeing it as the ultimate love story.
That's a very simplified way of putting it.
Yeah.
But I can see how the source arrived at that conclusion based on their earlier points about how each gender perceives love.
And they even offer advice based on this,
Right.
suggesting women can encourage men towards marriage by demonstrating the benefits of the relationship and subtly highlighting potential loss.
It almost sounds like a sales pitch.
Yeah.
But this brings up an important question.
Yeah.
Is this a fair and accurate portrayal of how men and women view marriage?
It definitely feels a bit reductionist, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As if all men are terrified of commitment
Right.
and all women are dreaming of white dresses and happily ever after.
Right. And let's not forget,
Yeah.
the source also suggested that men are constantly seeking benefits in relationships.
Right.
So wouldn't a happy and supportive marriage also be seen as a benefit?
That's a great point. It seems like the source is trying to fit these complex dynamics into very neat boxes,
Yeah.
when in reality, it's much more nuanced.
It is.
Plenty of men crave that deep emotional connection and see marriage as a beautiful commitment, while plenty of women might have reservations about the institution itself.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that societal expectations also play a huge role in shaping our views on love, relationships, and marriage.
Right.
We're not operating in a vacuum here.
Totally. We're bombarded with messages about what a successful relationship should look like, and those messages can influence our expectations and even our behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's worth questioning those societal norms rather than simply accepting them as inherent truth about how men and women should behave.
Well said. But let's loop back to another point the source made, the idea that men can compartmentalize their emotions,
Right.
especially when it comes to infidelity.
This is another area where the source makes some bold claims,
Okay.
suggesting that men can easily separate their feelings for different partners, leading to a higher likelihood of cheating.
But isn't infidelity a complex issue with a myriad of contributing factors?
Right.
It seems too easy to just pin it on men's supposed ability to compartmentalize.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Infidelity can stem from a lack of communication,
Yeah.
unmet needs, emotional dissatisfaction, a
Right.
desire for novelty, even societal pressures.
Okay.
Reducing it to a simple biological difference feels like a cop-out, doesn't it?
Totally. And it also ignores the fact that women are just as capable of infidelity,
Exactly.
despite the source's claims to the contrary.
This isn't about saying men are inherently untrustworthy
Right.
or that women are immune to temptation.
Right.
It's about recognizing that infidelity is a choice,
Yeah.
a conscious decision that individuals make regardless of their gender.
And it's a choice that has consequences.
Yeah.
Regardless of who makes it.
Right.
But let's pivot back to communication styles for a moment.
Okay.
The source spent quite a bit of time on that,
They did.
and it seems particularly relevant to this discussion about relationships.
Absolutely. If you recall,
Yeah.
they highlighted the difference in words spoken per day, 7,000 for men versus 20,000 for women.
Right. And they linked that to how each gender handles stress. Women talk it out, men retreat into silence.
Precisely.
Oh,
But the source also went a bit further,
yeah.
suggesting that men simply aren't as skilled at communication, particularly when it comes to arguments.
Okay.
They even claimed that women can't lose arguments because they simply talk more.
Yeah. Well, there might be some truth to the fact that women are often more comfortable expressing their emotions verbally,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't necessarily equate more words with better communication.
I agree.
Sometimes it's about the quality of what's being said, not just the quantity.
Exactly. And it's about listening, truly listening to understand the other person's perspective,
Right.
not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Which is something that can be challenging for both men and women,
Yes,
especially in the heat of an argument.
absolutely.
We all have our own communication patterns,
Yeah.
our own triggers,
Right.
our own ways of expressing ourselves.
Absolutely. And the source seemed to suggest that men are more focused on conveying information or solving problems during communication, while women prioritize emotional connection and validation.
It's like men see conversation as a tool to get from point A to point B,
Right.
while women see it as a way to build bridges and deepen relationships.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights how these differing approaches can lead to misunderstandings and frustration.
Yeah.
A man might think his partner is overreacting or talking in circles when she's actually just trying to process her emotions and feel heard.
While a woman might feel like her partner is being dismissive or emotionally unavailable when he's actually just trying to find a practical solution to the problem.
Exactly. And this is where the source's insights, despite their sometimes simplistic framing, can be valuable.
Yeah.
They remind us that we don't all speak the same language when it comes to communication.
Right.
Even for using the same words.
Right.
The underlying meanings and intentions can be quite different.
So how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah.
How do we learn to speak each other's language more effectively?
I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing that these differences exist
Mm-hmm.
and that they're not about right or wrong,
Right.
but about different approaches to communication.
It's about stepping outside our own assumptions and trying to see things from the other person's perspective.
Exactly. And it's about being willing to adjust our communication style
Yeah.
to meet our partner halfway.
Boy.
Maybe that means a man learning to validate his partner's emotions before jumping to solutions. Or a woman understanding that her partner's silence isn't necessarily a sign of disinterest.
It's about finding that balance between expressing ourselves authentically and being sensitive to the other person's needs.
And it's a continuous process,
Yeah.
a dance of learning and adapting as we navigate the complexities of relationships.
Well said. But the source didn't just focus on communication styles, right?
Right.
They also explored some deeper,
Yeah.
almost philosophical differences
Yeah.
in how men and women perceive the world.
That's right. They delved into this idea of men being driven by a need for benefits in relationships,
Okay.
while women seek a sense of wholeness and connection.
But they didn't really define what they meant by benefits, did they?
No, they left that a bit vague.
Yeah.
But I think it goes beyond just material possessions or financial security.
So what are these benefits then?
I think at a deeper level, they're about feeling respected, admired, appreciated.
Okay.
It's about feeling like you're contributing to the relationship in a meaningful way and that your contributions are valued by your partner.
So it's not about taking, but about feeling like you're giving something valuable and receiving something equally valuable in return.
Yeah.
It's that sense of reciprocity,
Right.
of being in sync with your partner.
Exactly. And I think for men, that sense of benefit is often tied to their sense of purpose and identity.
Okay.
They want to feel like they're providing for their partner, protecting her,
Yeah.
making her happy.
And that desire to provide and protect is often expressed through actions
Yes,
rather than words.
exactly. And this brings us back to that earlier point about communication styles.
Right.
A man might show his love by fixing things around the house,
Oh.
working hard to provide financial security,
Right.
or taking on the responsibility of planning vacations.
While a woman might show her love through words of affirmation, acts
Yeah.
of service, or
Mhm.
quality time spent together.
It's about recognizing that love can be expressed in many different ways, and that what feels meaningful to one person might not resonate as strongly with another.
And that's where communication becomes so crucial.
Absolutely.
If we can learn to express our needs and understand our partner's love language, we can create a more fulfilling and harmonious relationship.
Absolutely. And I think the source, despite some of its generalizations, offers a valuable reminder that men and women often approach relationships from different perspectives.
And understanding those differences rather than judging them can be the key to building stronger, more fulfilling connections.
Well said.
Yeah.
But the source didn't just stop at modern relationships, did they?
Right.
They also took us on a fascinating journey back in time,
Yeah.
exploring the historical role of women in society.
That's right. They brought up the prevalence of matriarchal societies in ancient cultures,
Yes.
suggesting that women once held more power and influence.
And they also noted that many early deities were female,
Right.
further supporting the idea of a time when women were revered for their wisdom and nurturing qualities.
Yeah. It's a fascinating perspective that challenges our modern assumptions about gender roles and power dynamics.
It makes you wonder how different our world might be if we had retained some of those ancient values and structures.
It's impossible to say for sure, but it's certainly an intriguing thought experiment. It's almost like peering through a window into an alternate reality where the power dynamics were completely flipped.
Right.
It makes you wonder if those societies faced similar communication challenges,
Yeah.
or if their understanding of these inherent differences led to a more harmonious balance.
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Perhaps in those societies, the differences in communication styles weren't seen as obstacles to be overcome,
Right.
but as complementary forces that strengthen their social fabric.
It makes you wonder if we've lost something valuable in our modern pursuit of equality, focusing so intently on minimizing differences that we've forgotten the power of embracing them.
Perhaps true equality isn't about erasing our distinctions,
Right.
but about valuing them, understanding how they contribute to a richer, more vibrant whole.
It's like a tapestry where each thread, with its unique color and texture,
Right.
contributes to the overall beauty of the design.
Exactly. And I think this deep dive,
Yeah.
despite the source's sometimes simplistic and provocative claims,
Yeah.
has highlighted the importance of appreciating those differences between men and women.
It's a reminder that communication is key,
Yes.
that understanding each other's love languages,
Right.
needs, and motivations
Right.
can pave the way for stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
And it's an invitation to question those ingrained societal norms,
Right.
to challenge those stereotypes that limit our understanding of what it means to be a man or a woman.
Because ultimately, it's about recognizing that we're all individuals on a journey of self-discovery, navigating the complexities of life and love in our own unique ways.
And those journeys, while different,
Yeah.
are often intertwined,
Yeah.
creating a beautiful tapestry of human connection and experience.
So, what does this all mean for you? We've covered a lot of ground today exploring communication styles, evolutionary influences, relationship dynamics, historical perspectives, and even a touch of philosophy.
Right.
What resonated most with you? What new insights will you take with you?
Perhaps this deep dive has sparked a curiosity to observe your own communication patterns or those of your partner. Maybe it's inspired you to explore the fascinating world of evolutionary psychology,
Right.
or to delve deeper into the history of gender roles.
Whatever takeaways you've gleaned, we hope this deep dive has provided you with some aha moments, some food for thought, and a renewed appreciation for the intricate dance between men and women.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Until next time.